But first, I know at the end of last week's episode, I said I wasn't going to do an episode this week, but then literally 1 hour after I posted the episode, this happened.
Gladys Berejiklian today sensationally resigning after almost 5 years as Premier.
Brought down not by the pandemic, not by the bushfires, but by her ex-boyfriend, former MP Daryl Maguire.
Gladys resigned. What did she have to say?
As the leader of the New South Wales Government, I have expected the highest standards of myself and my colleagues. I have made it clear on numerous occasions that if any of my ministers were the subject of allegations being investigated by an integrity agency or law enforcement, then he or she should stand aside during the course of the investigation until their name was cleared. That same standard must always apply to me also as the Premier.
Yes, that's right. Gladys Berejiklian sets the rules for herself and her MPs. And when she is investigated by ICAC, like her MPs, she has to resign. I mean, it's a bit like if you're at work and you said, and you were the boss and you were like, whoever steals the next cookie is getting fired, and then you steal the next cookie and have to fire yourself. Except instead of a cookie, it's a $20 million conservatorium of music.
ICAC announcing a public inquiry into her conduct while in a relationship with former Wagga MP Daryl Maguire. In particular, her role in awarding 2 state government grants, $5.5 million to the Australian Clay Target Association and $20 million for the Riverina Conservatorium of Music.
But Gladys stood firm.
I want to be very clear. In all the decisions I have ever made as a minister or as Premier of New South Wales, my first consideration has always been the well-being and welfare of the people of this state.
Especially those who want shooting ranges and music conservatories. They are first and foremost.
I state categorically I've always acted with the highest level of integrity. History will demonstrate that I've always executed my duties, again, with the highest level of integrity for the benefit of the people of New South Wales, who I have had the privilege to serve.
I mean, of course Gladys thinks she's done nothing wrong. This is the government that thinks pork barrelling is just part of their job.
The Premier has made an extraordinary admission revealing she believes political pork barrelling is okay. Destroyed documents have now been recovered, showing she personally approved spending tens of millions of dollars just on Liberal seats.
The term pork barrelling is common parlance, and if that's the accusation made on this occasion, I'm happy to accept that commentary.
So, of course, with ICAC doing its job of investigating people for corruption, Scott Morrison immediately lashed out at it.
Scott Morrison used a morning media blitz from ISO to attack the New South Wales Corruption Commission for forcing Gladys Berejiklian out of politics.
Oh, look, it's certainly not a model that we'd ever consider at a federal level, and I think that's been on display for some time. There are millions of people who've seen what's happened to Gladys Berejiklian and will understand that that's a pretty good call not to follow that model.
Yes, the model where ICAC can't actually convict anyone, it can only investigate them, and the Premier stepped down voluntarily. Yeah, that's a model to be feared. New South Wales Health Minister Brad Hazzard has a better idea.
There's no question that we need an ICAC, but whether it should be a model that is much closer to the Hong Kong model, where these matters are dealt with behind closed doors.
Yes, that bastion of democracy. Checks notes Hong Kong. But don't worry about Gladys, because in the Liberal Party, resigning in disgrace is no impediment into falling upwards into a career in federal politics.
Any chance of you offering a job in federal parliament? Would you like to see a run for the seat of Barilaro?
She has a lot more to contribute, I know that, but they are really issues for Gladys to work through when she's ready to do that. Right now, she's going to deal with the issues before her. But I know she's got a lot more to contribute, and there are many ways that I'm sure she can do that. And when she's worked through those issues, I'm sure she'll set out what she would like to do next. She should know that she has tremendous support both in the Liberal Party and I think right across New South Wales for the fantastic jobs that she's done.
Yes, and Gladys isn't the only one who could potentially be failing upwards into federal politics.
The New South Wales Transport Minister Andrew Constance has confirmed he'll quit state politics to run at the next federal election.
Andrew Constance, the Transport Minister, announcing he's leaving too.
I'll be resigning as Transport and Roads Minister after 10.5 years of serving as a State Minister.
Yes, 10.5 years and he didn't go anywhere. Well, now he knows what it's like to wait for a Sydney bus. Nailed ya! I got you! I got him! I can retire now. I can resign myself. But don't worry, this tilt at federal politics mightn't even last. We all remember when he threatened to run last year.
His second Canberra tilt after last year's 24-hour bid to run for Eden Monaro.
Less than 24 hours after announcing his candidacy to run for the federal seat of Eden Monaro, Andrew Constance has now changed his mind.
Yes, everyone waited 24 hours and Andrew Constance didn't turn up, just like a Sydney bus. Bloody gotcha! Yeah! Our transport system's a disgrace. Did I mention I hadn't written a script this week? Anyways, next up, it was a bit of a conga line of resignations from State Parliament. Who else left?
Good evening. The New South Wales government has tonight lurched from crisis to catastrophe, with Deputy Premier John Barilaro announcing his shock resignation.
The Deputy Premier is calling time on his political career, suggesting a midlife crisis.
I am leaving politics and I'll look to a new career. I turned 50 in November, maybe a bit of a midlife crisis.
Yes, John Barilaro resigning due to a midlife crisis. And it's funny, I've been reading up on midlife crises and I never realised that one of the main symptoms of which was being held to account by a YouTube comedian.
He also cited his ongoing defamation case against commentator Friendly Geordies.
He acknowledges he's been stewing over the decision for months. Online taunts have taken their toll.
It has taken a toll. It is tough on anybody in public life to continue in this role, especially under so much scrutiny.
Yes, that's right. YouTube comedian Friendly Geordies brought down the Deputy Premier of New South Wales in what turns out to be the highest profile politician to resign as a result of a comedian since Monty Python forced the resignation of the Minister for Silly Walks in 1970.